Well, good morning, guys, and welcome to the show. Fernando.
Welcome to the show, guys.
Today we're starting a brand new car stereo lab with some Ground Zero amplifiers. We're going to take you through the paces, all the way through the paces on these amplifiers, tell you all about them, put them on the dynos, put them into the car, the whole stereo lab. Here we go. The first amplifier we're going to take a look at is the Ground Zero RadioActive GZRA 4 HD. This is the 4-channel amplifier in the system. As always, start by perusing the box to see what kind of usable information it may have. On the cover, of course, tells you what series it is, the manufacturer, model number, how many channels, max power at 2 ohm stability. Turning on to the end, has the same information located here, 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 as well as here. But if we flip it over onto the back of the box, now we get a lot more useful information. Something really cool that we get is a side profile picture of the amplifier. This is nice so that if you want to get an idea of what you're getting into before you open the box, you can do that. It shows you all the crossovers and how they function, as well as how the terminals are set up on the side of the amplifier. Coming over to here, it gives us a feature set as well as power specifications, and then the ratings based on the CEA 2006 A standard is all located here, which we'll talk about once we get inside the amplifier. The nice thing is that they're putting all this information on the box, which usually means now it's on the website because it's easy to get to this information. Let's open it up and take a look inside. Has one of the standard pull tab style boxes. Lift it up and we find the amplifier sitting nice tucked inside of some foam and of course a little bit of gelatin. The amplifier. Located underneath we have a nice Ziploc bag. I love it when manufacturers give us Ziploc bags. Bags are fine, but Ziploc bags are better because we can open them and take out just what we need. First thing out is the one and only owner's manual, which means there's two, German, English. Taking a closer look at the owner's manual. High performance Class D amplifier, 2 ohm stable in stereo mode, 4 ohm stable in bridged mode. High level input with auto turn on feature, adjustable wideband active crossover, adjustable input sensitivity, turn on delay, thermal protection circuit. Mounting instructions, terms of warranty, recommended wiring. Then on the next page we have a diagram that shows us each one of the features on the amplifier, gives us a description down below, and then it goes into standard routing options for both low level and high level, basic speaker configurations, how to bridge it, and then into the finer points of the amplifier, as well as a small troubleshooting section. Jumping right into the specifications, RMS power rating at 4 ohms, 4 by 175 watts, 2 ohms, 4 by 275 watts, RMS power bridged 550, low pass filter from 40 to 4000 at 12 dB, high pass filter 40 to 4000 at 12 dB, frequency response 10 Hz to 25,000 Hz, signal to noise ratios negative 102.3 dB, total harmonic distortion less than 1%, dampening factor greater than 200, input sensitivity is from 200 millivolts to 5.3 volts, fuses 335 amp fuses, recommended main fuse 100 amp. Troubleshooting section is pretty straightforward, explains to you how to look if the lights don't do certain things or if you have no sound, so that's kind of nice there. Going back to this page where it talks about all the little inputs and outputs on the amplifier, let's grab the amplifier and do that. One of the things you'll notice right away is there are no mounting feet anywhere on this amplifier. Those you have to go back into the bag for. In typical Ground Zero applications we found, the mounting brackets are something that you attach to the amplifier. It just gives you more options for mounting the amplifier if you want, but there are 4 little tabs inside of this small Ziploc bag that have 2 screws for attaching to the amplifier, like so. Obviously you could do 1 screw if you want to go off to the side like this, but you have options of doing whichever you like, or you could use these to make a template to mount through the substrate. There's also an Allen key inside of the bag, which is for the set screws on the amplifier, as well as 4 big head screws to screw the amplifier down. Also in this bag we have our high level input plug. It's an 8-pin standard plug, and we'll start on that side of the amplifier to show you where it goes. It is located right here on the right side of the amplifier next to our 4 RCA inputs. This is another feature that I think is kind of nice. If you are going to be doing high-level inputs and you may be putting this in a very tight place, this is a kind of medium-sized amplifier, so there is a chance you could be putting this in a tight area. I like it when we have covers over the RCAs. This plugs in with the clip side facing down. Wire colors on it are standard: white, gray, green, purple, so driver's front, passenger front, driver's rear, passenger rear, in that order. Now going back to the left side of the amplifier, we have the protect light, the power light, red and green. Low pass filter on and off for channels 1 and 2. High pass filters on and off for channels 1 and 2. That's right, you have a band pass network up front. And then following that is your level control. Channels 3 and 4 follows with the same low pass, high pass, on off switch and variable crossover, as well as level control. Then your RCA input mode, 4-channel or 2-channel. Conceivably, you could use this amplifier as a front stage amplifier to go full active because it has bandpass crossovers and it goes up to 4,000 Hertz, which is pretty high. If you put it in 2-channel input mode, you can feed your inputs into 1 and 2, which will internally populate 3 and 4. That way you can use channel 1 and 2 to power your tweeters, 3 and 4 to power your mid bass, or use it as a front and rear amplifier. You could still use your single input if you're going to be using something like a Bluetooth dongle to go into this, or if you have an aftermarket radio or a factory radio that has 4 channels of output, leave it on 4-channel mode. It gives you just versatility in the input section of the amplifier. Flipping the amplifier over, the way they've designed this amplifier is even though these set screws go in at an angle, so they're coming in like this, the wire thankfully is coming straight out of the amplifier. You don't have to worry about it coming down at like that angle and then getting caught on the amp board or anything like that. First up is going to be ground, and it's a 4-gauge, remote turn on and power, the 335 amp fuses, and then your speaker level output. Channel 1 positive, then negative, then channel 2 follows that up with positive, negative. 3 is the same, positive, negative, then 4, positive, negative. And then on the outside here it says bridge, so you'd use the channel 1 positive, channel 2 negative, channel 3 positive, channel 4 negative if you're going to bridge this amplifier. The overall dimensions of the amplifier, I like to add in, wire and stuff like that, but the actual heatsink size is 9 by 7 3/8, but realistically when you add in tips of the RCAs to the outputs, you're looking at about 10.5. Height wise, 2 inches. And of course the unboxing wouldn't be complete without pulling the bottom of the amplifier off and showing you the inside. One of the things I really like about this, that has absolutely nothing to do with the way it sounds, is the 2-tone board. It is like a black and this orangish color here, or flesh color. Looks really cool, kind of sets off the inside of the amplifier, but here you go, sit back, relax, freeze the frame, and enjoy. And with that done, it's time to get it over and do a real world amp dyno. That's right, real world. We meter this at 13.5, not the standard 14.4. The first test is going to be a certified 4-ohm stereo run. Now, even though this is a 4-channel amplifier, we've added in a load resistor bank to channels 3 and 4 so that the power supply is seeing the full load as if there was speakers on every channel. That way we can get the most accurate real world dyno run possible. 180 and 181. Let's reset and do the 2-ohm load. 264 and 268. Uncertified dyno run 4-ohm is next. And we squeak out a 190 and a 195. Let's reset for 2-ohm. 273 and 284. Next up is dynamic 4-ohm. 187, 193. 2-ohm is next. 305 and 287. And that brings us to the end of our dyno run. Let's head back over to the bench. Next up is the amplifier we'll be using for sub, which is the Ground Zero RadioActive GZRA 2HD. It's a 2-channel amplifier. Looking around the amplifier for what information it has, it is exactly the same as the 4-channel version, and when we flip it over to the back, we get all of that same usable information. However, what we do notice down here is that if you do want to use it and have an external bass knob, it is optional, which they tell you about right here, but they give you all those same ratings on the amplifier. This is very nice because it's all located here if you don't want to read the owner's manual, so you can kind of get an idea beforehand, just like on the other amp. The amplifier is in the box the exact same way, grabbing our instruction manual. Some of the same information as its partner 4-channel amplifier. High performance class D amplifier, 2-ohm stable and stereo, 4 ohm bridged, high level inputs with auto turn on feature, adjustable wideband active crossover, bass boost control from 0 to 12 dB at 45 Hertz, this being capable of being used as a sub amplifier. Wired bass knob remote control separately available, and the part number is the GZRA. Turn on delay and thermal protection circuit. Keep in mind this is a 2-channel amplifier. There's a lot you could do with this along with its partner 4-channel amplifier. You don't necessarily have to use it the way we are as a sub amp. You can use it as a mid-bass amplifier. The 2 amplifiers would make a great power for a 3-way set because you get that bigger power on the mid-bass. Same basic layout with information here. Shows you how to hook up your high level, your low level, basic config, how to bridge it, how to hook it up in stereo, and then we get over to the side here where our pertinent information is. 285 by 2 at 4 ohm, 450 by 2 at 2 ohms, bridged is 900 watts, low pass filter of 40 to 4000, high pass filter of 40 to 4000, both at 12 dB. Frequency response is 10 to 25,000. Signal to noise ratio is negative 101.9. Total harmonic distortion is less than 1%. Dampening factor is greater than 200. Input sensitivity is 200 millivolts to 5.3. It has 3 30 amp fuses, and recommended under the hood fuse is 100 amp. Very similar to its partner amplifier. When looking at the 2 amplifiers side by side, you can see that they are the exact same size. Let's take a look at the side of the amplifier and see how it is a little bit different and a little bit the same. On the right hand side is our high level input. Because this is a 2-channel amplifier, it has a 4-pin high level connector for it using white and gray wire. Goes in the same way with the clip facing down. Our 2 input RCAs. Going over to the right side of the amplifier, red protect, green power. The input for the optional bass knob, low pass filter on and off, high pass filter on and off, the bass boost, which is different than the 4-channel, as well as our gain control. On the other end of the amplifier, ground remote power, all 4-gauge inputs, our 3 30 amp fuses, channel 1 positive, negative, channel 2 positive, negative, and the positive from channel 1 and the negative from channel 2 is our bridge mode. The last step of the unboxing, the removal of the backplate. Enjoy. With that done, it is time to do real-world amp dyno on this guy. Let's get started with the certified dyno run at stereo 4 ohm. With that run, we come in at 249 and 255. Next up is the 2 ohm run. That gives us 364 and 376. Next, we'll rewire it for mono and do a 4 ohm mono run, just like we'll be running it with our subwoofer. 755 watts. Next up is the uncertified 4 ohm mono run, 794 watts. Lastly, dynamic power run, 4 ohm mono. We end up with 771 watts. For wiring up the amplifiers, we're going to be using the 4Connect 4-gauge kit power distribution block in 6-channel RCA. Pulling it apart, this is their really cool 4-channel power and ground distribution. The 0-gauge comes in through here, and we'll attach up to 4 fuses with LEDs on them, and then 4, 8, or 4-gauge can come out. On this side you have dual ground input, as well as you have your 4 outputs to your amplifiers. Top locks into place. The RCA is a 5.5 meter 6-channel with a mono cable down the center. Each tip has its own color associated with it: white, green, yellow, orange, red, and blue. That way you can match up your inputs with your outputs over the long run. Inside the 4-gauge kit, we get our fuse holder that has 8-gauge or 4-gauge. It's a universal fit, and it comes with a 80 amp fuse. This particular kit comes with a 5.5 meter 2-channel RCA. Not going to be needed for this install. Comes with some loom to go over the power wire underneath the hood. Comes with a 0.8 meter ground cable, as well as a 5.2 meter 4-gauge power wire. There is a ring terminal installed on one end. It is 100% OFC copper. In a bag, we get a couple zip ties, some installation ends for the power wire, and 2 fork terminals. On the ground, there is also a ring terminal attached. We'll be using this to go into our power distribution block to get it wired up to go into the lab. We've made a piece of 1/4 inch blown PVC, product called Centra or Paleolite. The amps are going to sit just like this. The 4-channel on this side, 2-channel on this side, our power distribution. Our plan is to route the RCAs along this way, our power wire along this way into the distribution block, giving us our 2 outputs here. Found some risers. I want to lift these amplifiers up off of this panel a 1/4 of an inch. These risers we actually take out of our fuse holders. This is the 8 gauge to 4 gauge spacers that we use. We save them in a big container. 3/4 inch screws. We'll get these all screwed in, get this screwed down, and we'll start our wiring process. What I wanted to leave is a couple inches here at the top for the RCA to loop around and come down this side. I don't need a ton of room for that. And then on the bottom is where majority of my room is going to be. My power wire is going to come down across the very bottom here, up, over, and in. Then my speaker wires are going to come down and turn and go this way. I like to start screwing my amps in, obviously, in the one corner. Take a measurement and then make sure that I have the same on this side. I want to keep this down low. I want to save this area here. We want to put a logo here. Anytime you get done with an amp rack, what usually happens is on the back side of it is the little tips of the screws. For most cases, that's going to be fine. However, because we're moving these things around a lot, we're setting them on different surfaces, they tend to scratch everything. They could scratch the car when you're sliding it in. They could scratch your arm and leave you with a lot of scars like I currently have. I like to take this over to the workstation and sand them all down flat, so just not to have that problem. With that done, I could rub my hand over it and not have to worry about coming back a bloody mess. A little dirty, but that's okay. When wiring up an amp rack, I like to divide it into sections as far as how I want to accomplish things. In this case, I have the signal side, which is going to be here. I have the speaker side, or the output, which is going to go along this way. And then I have the power section, which is going to come along this side. It does have to be done in a sort of an order. You don't want to wire up this power and then have to go underneath it with the signal. It's much easier to do the signal first and then lay the power over the top of it. I like getting something done just to feel like I've accomplished something. Therefore, I'm going to start with the RCA. One of the reasons why we are installing the amplifiers with this configuration is because of this RCA. If I was going to be doing this style installation where I have a 4-channel and a monoblock, I would typically like to go with a 4-channel RCA and a single RCA. They sent us these, so we're going to make them work. That means I have a very limited amount of space between these 2 RCAs. It's about 12 inches. Putting it in this configuration allows me to have plenty of room to do that. As far as choosing the colors go, it really doesn't matter. You can pick whatever you would like. This is going to be running tweeters and mid-bass, and there is some split on this, which I think is the more important thing here. In this case, it looks like yellow and white will go off to the 2-channel amp, and the green and blue will go off to 3 and 4, and the red and orange will be our 1 and 2. I like these RCAs. I like the tips that they have. They grab in really nice. They're not going to accidentally come out. They have a spiral cut to them, which bites into the amplifier, which is cool. But what I've done now is I've separated out these RCAs in their pattern, and we've used their natural separation to power in our amplifiers. Next is to get this attached to our amp rack. We'll be mounting the wire along the side here, and because we like everything to match up, we're going to be using our wire ruler to evenly space our holes for our tie downs. For this, we'll be using 4-inch zip ties. According to the wire ruler, need a 9/64 drill bit. One of the things about the wire ruler that a lot of people don't quite get, you don't have to put a hole every single one of these if you don't want to. The idea behind it was just to create an equal spacing across what you're trying to do. If you'd like to go every other hole, you can. It's okay. What we've given you is 1 inch on this side, 3/4 of an inch on this side. That way you can figure out whatever pattern you'd like to use and go from there. Get your first holes drilled as a reference point, and from there you can use the wire ruler. There are lines on both sides so you can line it up with the edge of the product and keep it as straight as possible. And after a little bit of time, we have these wires all zip tied in place, tucked in tight next to the amplifier. And the next step is to move on to the signal side of things because I want them to come up and join in with our RCA here. This is the sub amp, and I always forget to wire up the sub wires. It's just one of my things, so I'll make sure to do that. For this, I'll be using some speed wire to connect into here to get our 4 outputs. Even though we are going to be using on our end this for a tweeter and a mid, we're going to be giving this away, and the person that ends up with this may need this to go as a front and rear. So we want to make sure we wire it up that way just in case. For those of you guys that aren't familiar with speed wire, it is a 9 conductor wire. Pull a little bit off the end here. There's many companies that make this wire now at various different sizes, so depending on how thick you'd like it. And it has 8 sets of speaker wires and 1 set of remote turn on. There is this little insulator here that they use when manufacturing. Easily remove that. My plan is to start with it here and have it come along and join up with this wire just like this. I think I need just a little bit more cut off this end. And there is a technique for separating these apart, believe it or not. In this case, it goes 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's going to be white, gray, green, purple. So I need to pull out my whites first, put them into the tip of my drill, and then slowly spin them up. Next, I need to pull out my grays and separate them, looking down into where this all comes together and pulling them apart. Spin that into place. Next is going to be my greens. Lastly, the purples. Now, doing it the way we just did it, that'll fan them out in the order we want them to be used. It'll also allow us to stack them on top of one another in the case of, say you're doing an over-under, because otherwise what you'll end up with is at the knuckle here, you'll end up with something that'll all look like this and be terrible, and it'll all be twisted up, and you'll create a big spot here. This keeps it nice and thin, as you can see. To attach these into here, we will be using wire ferrules. Wire ferrules is this little sleeve right here, slides over the end of the wire, keeps it nice and tight, and gives us something to bundle all these multi-stranded wires together, so as we're tightening this thing up, it doesn't tear them all apart. That doesn't mean you can go gorilla on this. When it gets tight, stop. It's in there tight enough. I've seen people where they'll actually cut these things right in half when they're tightening these things down. Just get it tight enough to where the wire isn't going to come loose, not going to fluctuate with heat. You still have to be cautious. To finish these ends off, we have some braided loom, some colored heat shrink, red and black to go over the ends. Take your time, do a nice job here. This is what everyone is going to see. We use the same wire ruler to line these all up. Work this a little bit. Don't rush through this. And this is the fun part, by the way. I know everyone's like always in a hurry to get their stuff in. Take your time and enjoy this part of it. One last thing is we need to get these lined up. The first hole here is going to be our remote, so that'll be the first wire that I decide the length on. We'll strip that back. 4 small ferrules, they do make a cool tool that allows you to crimp it and make it nice and tight. We're all set and ready to get this started. Speaker wires are now in place along with our 2 remote turn-ons. Everything is covered in a braided loom along with a matching heat shrink to tell us what channel is which. These are not super tight because we still have to do our distortion detection in the end, so they're just like hand tight. If I pull real hard, these will come out. We'll wait to tighten these up until the very end. The remote turn-ons are, however, tightened down. In the end of this, if you're like wanting to see this better, we'll do a full pan across the bottom and show you this really tight and up close. The next step is the subwoofer speaker wire. For that, I like to use primary wire, not a big connected wire. We're gonna put these in this braided sleeving, and I want them to move and feel free and do whatever they like. We carry 2 different sizes. We carry a 10 gauge, we carry a 12 gauge. This install will be using this size here, which is the dual 12 gauge. I'm gonna need about 4 feet of each. It'll come along here and just be out of reach of this power wire, so it can go off into the subwoofer. That again is up to you depending on where your subwoofer is going to be. Sometimes it'll just come off, like if this is mounted into the side of a car or something like that. That is up to you and how you'd like to do the installation. And with the final zip tie put into this, my sub wire is located in place. If you'll notice, what I did is I put the speaker wires here on the outside, worked inward towards the amplifier, remote turn on wire, then my sub wire to eat up any of that excess room I had, so I'll have plenty of room here across the bottom for the power wire. The outsides are bridged, and we will be bridging this off to a single subwoofer. Comes along here, and then the end is also nicely terminated with shrink wrap, 2 ferrules to go into the speaker cup, as well as heat shrink to finish off the braided loom. And that takes us to the next part, which is the power wire. I've pre-made my 4 gauge jumpers in about the length I need them. I've put a ferrule on one end, but not on the other. That's the the end that's going to go towards the distribution block here. The grounds are going to come closest to the floor here with the power on the inside. I'll start with those. I like to pull the screw out first and make sure that the ferrule went in all the way. Sometimes when adding the shrink wrap to it, it might not get put in far enough, and you have to cut some of the shrink wrap off. Give it a nice pulling to make sure that it's in there as good as it can be. Move on to the power. All 4 of my power wires are in. The next step is to route them over to here. In doing that, the plan is to get these set, and then these are going to sit on top of them. So you'll end up with something that looks like this. I want to keep these as straight as I can, so these first few zip ties are going to be very important. I need to figure out where to put my first zip tie, and I will make that hole. Once I have that hole done, line it up. For this, I'm going to use the 8-inch zip tie to hold these really, really tight. I can still use that same size hole, or I can go up to the next size hole on this, which is 5/32. 5/32, the 8-inch zip tie will be a little looser, and if you need to like twist it around, you're good. If you're just doing straight, you're okay with the 9/64. With the zip ties in, wire stacked on top of itself, we can now bring over our power wire. The idea is to use these 2 outside connections here and here. There's going to be 2 fuses in place, and if we want, we could add 2 spares just in case. You never know when you might need an extra fuse. These both need, as we know from the manual, a 100 amp fuse, and then our 2 grounds will be the same, located here and here. What I need to do is start here with the closest one and work my way out to the farthest one, keeping them stacked on top of one another like this and fingering them into their locations. And there we have it. Wires are into place. Last step is to add in the fuse. We have 200 amp fuses. I did change the way I wanted to do this, like I always end up doing. Originally I was going to put the wires on the outside here. After I thought about it, it kind of made sense and just kind of filled up the spacing a little bit better if I went wire, no wire, wire. I like changing my mind while I'm doing this stuff. It just makes things a little bit more interesting. Cover kind of in place here. And that is our amp board. Let's take a closer look at it. For those of you guys aren't familiar with what the lab is, it's this guy's G35.
That's right.
And what we've done is we've set up in the trunk a test bench that allows us to hook up power, hook up signal, both speaker, RCA, and behind here we have 2 amplifiers that stay in all the time. This allows us to test DSP, amplifiers, whatever we like that somebody sends us to play with. We can do it in the back of his car easily. That means the radioactive amps are in. Let's get them set up, dialed in, so we can take a listen. The first step is setting the amplifiers up for what we're going to be doing. This is the 4-channel here. It is going to be powering tweeters and mid-bass. This is the 2-channel. It is going to be powering a subwoofer. Turn on the first switch is low pass, and then adjust the crossover. Remember, it goes from 40 to 4K. We'll put it all the way up to 4K. That way we can turn it down to our frequency that we want for the sub, which is going to be 80 Hertz. Bass boost is 0. Gain is set at 0. Moving to this amplifier, we are just going to be using inputs 1 for both channels. This switch here is the input mode, 2-channel, 4-channel. If we push it in, that will allow just channels 1 and 2 to feed all 4 of them. Coming back over to this side, the high pass switch needs to be on, and we'll go the other direction for this, which is default to 40 Hertz. Make sure our gain is turned down. On 3 and 4, we're going to have the low pass and the high pass on because we're going to be creating a band pass. The low pass needs to be set to 40 and the high pass needs to be set to 4000. But until we get to setting them up, we're going to turn them both off because we have to do one at a time. Check the gain to make sure it is all the way down, and it is. To get these amplifiers set up, the first thing we need to do is adjust our gains. Then we'll adjust our crossovers. We're going to start over here with channels 1 and 2 on our tweeters. For that, we're going to play a 1000 Hertz 0 dB test track. You can use -5, you can use -10, you can do whatever you want. For this, we are just doing some testing. We're not going to be going crazy, so 0 dB is perfect. Alright, that is channel 1 and 2. Let's go to channel 3 and 4. That's set. and we'll move on to the sub amp. Switch to 40 hertz, -5. Now I'm a big fan of bass boost, so I'm going to turn our bass boost up halfway, and now I will adjust my gain appropriately. All right, there we go. Our gains are all set. You can turn it back down, and it was that simple. Now we'll move on to the crossover calibrator. For the tweeters, we want to cross them over at 3000. We'll start working it up. We went too far. And that gives us 3000. We'll keep playing 3000 and we'll move on to channels 3 and 4. Mid bass, we need to put a top on that. So we'll select read, and that means we'll come over to low pass, turn that off, and we'll start working that controller. And this one falls right inside of a click. These gains, as you can see, it's rolling past it because these gains have a little click to them, and so it's right in the middle of that click. So we're not going to get it exactly perfect, but we'll go on the side of caution and we'll make it a little higher. Next, we're going to play 80 hertz, turn off the low pass, turn on the high pass, turn this off and reset. Alright, signal's good at 80 hertz. We'll select read, and now we'll start dialing this guy up. And there again, it seems like every frequency I pick falls right between another frequency. So we'll have to just call that the closest we can get to 80. Move over to our sub amp. Really close that time. And there again, it's like right in the middle. There we go, perfect. All right, that's it. Our crossovers are set. You can turn it down. The one thing I need to do before I forget while I'm talking to you is go back into here and on 3 and 4, turn on the low pass crossover so that we have a low pass and a high pass on. That's gonna create that band pass channel, which means it will play only so low and only so high. The last thing I need to do is we have a barrier strip in the corner where the speaker wires need to get screwed into. I need to do that, and then we'll put the sub in and we can bang away, right?
Yes, let's go.
We're so close. We've actually been sitting in the car, tweaking it just a little bit. Let's hop in, I'll tell you what we do. Right now, we have the subwoofer disconnected. We wanted you guys just to hear the inside sound. This still has the Ground Zero uraniums in it. We turned the tweeters down just a touch, and we adjusted the crossover for the mid bass down just a little bit. We have plenty of room on 0 dB. These amps put out, as we saw in the dyno, a ton of power. Yeah. It's a lot of power for sure. Let's take a listen. It's very dynamic sounding. It's very nice, very snappy. You know, I know I use that word a lot, but it's very snappy. So let's take a listen.
Snappy.
Has a really nice balanced sound to it. I like what we can get out of this. I love the fact that it has band pass so that we can use it as a front stage upgrade. I'm gonna plug the subwoofer back in. We'll play that same segment again and let you hear it with the bass. We're running a single 10 in a ported enclosure, and it's gonna add a lot of impact to this. Trust me on that one.
Fills up the whole thing.
Oh yeah. And there you have it, with a little bit of bass, a little bit of soul, a little bit of rock and roll. Oh damn, you're dropping the salt.
Yeah.
Well, that's it, guys. If you're looking for a nice little 4-channel combination, 5-channel hookup, reasonable amount of current draw, I mean reasonably low amount of current draw for the 2 amplifiers combined together, we're at like 200 amps. Plenty of power to move a front stage, do front and rear. I think the front stage upgrade is really the benefit of this amplifier because it's a lot of power to do that with. I think if we were to do this again, we would run channel 1 and 2 to the tweeters. We'd take the 2-channel and go to the mid bass, and then just run the sub off of 3 and 4, the 4-channel amplifier. I think that would have been money, but we're gonna be giving it away, so I don't want to spend much time rewiring it. As far as how we're gonna give it away, stay tuned to the network, both Instagram and Facebook, as well as YouTube. We're gonna talk about it here, and if you're watching this and it's not August of 2022, well then you missed out.
Yeah,
so, but thank you for watching anyways. That's it for now, guys. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Car Stereo Lab. If you like these things, give it a thumbs up. Let us know in the comments.
Share it so people can see it, man.
Do all that fun stuff. I feel like such a shill asking you guys to do that. Oh well, maybe you have to do some work. Alright guys, thank you for watching as always. You have a great night. We'll see you later next time.
Bye.
Bye. That's the end of the song.